Welcome to Life on Earth. Welcome to Life on Earth. Welcome to Life on Earth. Hello, you good people, and welcome to, oh my gosh, welcome to Life on Earth, episode 50, the anniversary episode. Thank you for joining the celebration. The super chat, oh my gosh, is already popping. Let's do it. Let's make this a record super. I think it may already be a record super chat to support the ARCUK. Thank you for joining us. This is Life on Earth with Robert and Amy Nasir and a slew of guests. Some of them are already on the camera. More folks are coming in. This is going to be great fun. We're going to talk about what ARCUK has meant to us, what the last year of Life on Earth has been like, not literally Life on Earth, although that too, but the show. And we may get into some of the super chatters as well, because some of the greatest ARCUK super fans are out there. Stephanie, Marilyn, you know who you are. We'll go through some names here. Oh my gosh, Jennifer is in the chat and in the super chat. So excellent. 1 year ago tomorrow, we did the first YouTube version of Life on Earth. Now, we started out as a Clubhouse show, and we did that for a couple months, a month or two. And the Lord and Emperor of all things ARCUK, the man on the camera, said, you know, Robert, what you're doing is pretty good. We should get you on YouTube, you know, with all the proper shows. I'm like, hey.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Really?
I'm all about that.
Okay.
So we did an episode. Our first episode was called Awe and Ashtrays, Possessions and Professions. And we talked about some things are reverent, some things matter. Your career, it was a great show. And it's fun because I listen to it now and I think that was a great show, but oh my gosh, have we come a long way since then. We have done 50 episodes, well, counting this episode, we have done 50 episodes of this show. We are so glad you're along for the ride. And some of the other greatness, the great hosts and co-hosts of ARCUK are joining us today. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about 4 different things. We're going to talk about 100 different things, but we're going to talk about 4 different things. What has been the impact of objectivism on your life? Now, I swear I wrote that question before today's TDO number 508 was announced. That was great. What has objectivism really done for you? And Rucka and Nikos hosted that. Originally, Mark Pellegrino was going to be on, but I know he's busy with Cannes Film Festival and his own. And then also the rocket scientist, well, the astrophysicist, Amanda Maxson was going to be on. I guess she couldn't make that one because she knew she was going to be here for this. This is going to be good as well. So that first question, what has been the impact of objectivism on your life? I'd answer it right now, but we're going to get to our guests and then Amy and I will hog the show toward the end.
Well, before we start, I would actually like to say something. I looked back. I used to write a blog called Kindredist.
Yes.
And then I stopped. So, but I wrote something actually about my Great Lakes Objectivist group and basically why I decided to host objectivist events and dinners and all of this and conferences and all this stuff. And so
why did you do all that?
So I wrote this, and this really applies to right here, right now with all of you. I said, I like spreading wisdom and joy to those who appreciate it. And I said, and now change this up a little bit. The primary reason people come to Ayn Rand Center UK is to see other people appreciate ideas and to express thanks to them for simply being out there in the world. I recently received, and this was way back when, I received the same reaction from a coworker who told me after learning that I study Ayn Rand, I just want to let you know that I'm glad you're out there. Putting aside all those awkward and alien moments, you know, at work and other people and seeing all the people that, you know, are Christians or whoever, you know, you spend time with them. That was a moment that makes it all worth it. And this is a moment right now that makes it all worth it.
It really does. If Ayn Rand was right, and one of the greatest gifts you can offer is the sight of a personal achievement. Mm-hmm. Well, this was the right time for that. We're getting to 5 minutes after the hour, and I am budgeting time because I've got so many great people I want to talk to. So I'm going to go right to our first guest, first person we want to talk to, Don Watkins. Thank you for joining us. Your work with ARCUK, of course, was legend and still is when you appear on the shows, but your discussions about writing, your fiction, taking us through your book, the many episodes that you've participated on, everybody's shows, all of the work that you've done. But I want to go right to that first question with you, because I know you've got a great answer to question number one. What has been, Don, the impact of objectivism on your life? How are you doing, and what's your story?
Well, gosh, now you've said I had to have a good answer.
That's true. You only said you had an answer, but I've never heard you have a bad answer.
No, what I would say is that it's made me way more consistent. And I mean that in an important way. So like, I think, most people have a mixture of like virtues and vices, or strengths and weaknesses, or things like that. And if you take, like, let's take a delimited realm, like writing. When I was learning how to write, I'm just like imitating early on as a kid. I'm just imitating the people that I was reading, right? This is what I think a story is, and I'll have this happen, and I'll have this happen. And some of it was good, some of it was bad, but I had no way to judge and no way to deliberately do what was good until I reached a certain point where I could formulate, what is a story? What is its purpose? And then once I had a standard, I could more self-consciously say, okay, this is good, this is bad. And I could really become a consistently good writer. And indeed, I'm still working on it, but at least I have that ideal that I can strive for and know when I'm hitting it, know when I'm not. And objectivism is what does that for life for me. I had a lot of virtues as a kid. I had a lot of vices. I had a lot of strengths. I had a lot of weaknesses. And what objectivism did was help me separate, well, what are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? How can I self-consciously cultivate the good and push away the bad? And without philosophy, I would have been a mixture of those things in some form. I'd like to think a pretty good mixture, but man, why are you going to mix in anything bad when you could have everything going for you? And that's really what philosophy does by helping us really refine our understanding of things. Now, some people, have way more dramatic stories of like, my life was a train wreck and then it saved me. And that's awesome. Though the philosophy didn't save you, your virtues, even if they were minor, allowed you to recognize the value of the philosophy and use it to save yourself. But I was so young that when I encountered it, but it was being able to be more self-consciously on the side of the true and the good that really was the benefit of philosophy for me.
I love that you make that point. For everybody who said, Ayn Rand changed me, she made me better, she saved my life. You're right. It's worth pointing out to them, well, you did that. You took this information, you used these materials, because how many people read Ayn Rand and think, well, that was okay, and then walk away, or criticize Ayn Rand and say, oh, this is not life at all. So you're right.
Or say it's awesome and don't use it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The whole premise of having a show called Life on Earth is, this is the owner's manual for life. Crack the manual and use this information.
So if you find somebody who takes Ayn Rand's ideas seriously, philosophy seriously, organizing your life seriously, like you do, Don, which I really admire you for, you need to give them credit. and you need to say, I'm around people who are good. And if I do that for myself, those virtues are my own. Those are the ones that I earned. And I love that.
Outstanding. Now, I said I would have 4 questions, and everybody's going to have a chance to answer at least a couple of these. Don, I think you have an answer to question number 2, and that is, and one of my favorite questions, even though it almost seems cliche at this point, I love this. What's your Ayn Rand origin story? How on earth did you come across this stuff?
I've told it in several places, but I don't even remember those are. So it's probably podcasts I did that nobody ever heard. So I'll tell it here where my delightful friends will at least see it. And the short version of it was like, I was always interested in philosophy. Like, I'm talking about, like, I'm 10 years old in karate, and my favorite part is when our sensei would drop like Zen sayings on us at the very end. It was like, oh, yes. Cool. You can have like views about life as such. That's amazing. And I read a Jim Morrison biography when I was like in like 8th grade, and I was kind of disgusted by his actual like fame and fortune. But early on, he's described as like this voracious reader who like, was interested in Nietzsche and all this. And I was like, oh man, I love that. I love philosophy. Sounds really cool. So I bought a bunch of Nietzsche, didn't understand a damn thing. But at a certain point when I was in ninth grade, I decided I need to figure out which religion is true, which obviously I do. So I logged on to AOL, America Online, dial up. And I don't know how, but I came upon a transcribed speech by a gentleman who just died, George H. Smith, on why atheism was true. And I read it and said, oh yeah, of course. And that was it. Like I was an atheist. Now it turns out, though I didn't know that at the time, and though he wasn't the one who led me more directly to Ayn Rand, he was tremendously influenced by Ayn Rand. And if you read his book, Atheism, the Case Against God, he quotes Brandon a lot. I think he quotes Rand as well. But that was, I responded to it right away, even though I was getting it in this kind of diluted form. And then I encountered another writer who wasn't writing about religion, but about life, this guy, Robert Ringer. And Robert Ringer was talking about you need to be rationally selfish. And hey, laissez-faire capitalism is awesome. And I was like, this sounds great. And then I read all his books and he kept quoting this woman, Ayn Rand, a lot. And he had some critical things to say on her in his later books. But I was like, I don't know, she sounds kind of cool. I'll check her out. And then I go, oh, so I found Ayn Rand through two completely different people who were influenced by her. So there was something in me that was responding to objectivist ideas, like from the age of 14. And I still can't put my finger on it because, I got into atheism for a while and I was not at all attracted to skepticism, and those two worlds are very blended if you study them. But for some reason, I had the idea from a very young age, reason is important. Reason has to be able to lead to knowledge, and then your happiness is important. And then when I found the person who really understood those ideas better than everybody else, like I was sold long before I ever read any of the novels.
Well, it sounds like coming in through Smith and through Ringer, if you're coming in from different directions, you almost have to be thinking first-handed about, well, this is what this person says about her. This is what this person says about her. Let me read her and understand her for myself. That is excellent. And Don, if you want, you can stick around. Feel free to chime in at any time, but I'm going to jump right over to Razi because we're trying to get everybody in because, we've done these before and we get to the end and it's like, oh, you never got to me. So Razi, the man who made it all happen, the man behind the scenes, tell us a bit about your relationship to ARCUK. Now, this question, of course, to most of us would mean, well, here's where I am as a host. Here's where I am as a member. Here's what I admire about ARCUK. But you are the man who made it happen. And I've heard the stories that it started with meetups, London meetup. Is that right?
Yeah, that is how it started. By the way, when you were working on the schedule and I said I'll go second, I didn't really think of the fact that meant I'm going to be following Don Watkins somehow. But that in a nutshell is what ARCUK is for me. I mean, I get to work with people I've admired from afar for many, many years, and with people I admire now, and it's it is a wonderful experience. It is people have heard the story of how it started, but being there, I do remember how for the first 10 months or so it really was just a meetup of like 5 people kind of discussing an essay, not really usually going off topic. I mean, we've come a long way, and I think we're still just at the beginning.
It's like most of us who started a small group, and sometimes it spent a long time as a very small group. And I have to say, you have taken this from being a small group to being a full enterprise. I would say second only to ARI in terms of the impact within the objectivist community. And some days I might say with ARI second to you, but I have to say that,
you're gonna get me in trouble if you say that. So,
but
Hey, we won't say that.
But here's the thing: the Ayn Rand Institute, as magnificent as they are, and as much as we all support them, is a nonprofit, whereas ARCUK does not have that limitation, and there are things you can do that you couldn't do as a nonprofit. And for that reason, I have to say, because it's quarter after the hour, I got to go to the super chats for a second, because Phil is in for £100 supporting the Ayn Rand Center UK. and on our show, which we take as an enormous compliment. Thank you for that, Phil. And Phil says in his super chat, congratulations on the first of hopefully many years of good-humored, insightful objectivism. Now, that's a great compliment if you know what Amy and I do, and what everybody on the channel does. But he also says, may I ask, what each of you might consider most important for inclusion in a newly written, unambiguous British Constitution with a limited term head of state? Cheers. Now, we don't have to discuss this right now during this part of the conversation, but we owe Phil an answer for that kind of super chat. And Rosie, you're actually in the UK. You are the reason why it's the Ayn Rand Center UK. Did you have any thoughts or an opinion on Phil's super chat, or would you like to just say, thank you, Phil?
I definitely want to say thank you, Phil. And by the way, I was going to say, yeah, we are a for-profit, and super chats are a great way for us to make some of that profit. So, you know, people can celebrate episode 50 by giving a £50 or $50 super chat. Phil, yours counts as 2 of those, but that's, you know, we can aim for 50 super chats of £50. I don't know if we'll get there, but why not?
You did the 500th TDO, the 500th show recently, and I know the super chats were great for that. I wonder if we could beat that tonight. Let's see how we do.
Yeah. Now, I do have to say, if there are any more super chats similar to Phil's, I can't guarantee for any amount that I can write a constitution like off the top of my head. But I definitely do think on the head of state part, I'm not sure what I think about term limits, but I do think, yeah, a head of state that is not a symbolic figure handed, you know, gets it handed down to them by birth is a good starting point. So yeah, that's my answer to that.
Excellent. And I know one of the questions that you suggested you might be willing to answer is, have you seen or heard episodes of this show, Life on Earth, with Robert and Amy Nasir? And if so, what are your thoughts?
Well,
or any episodes that stuck out, or favorites, or just general thoughts?
I have seen and heard, and heard basically the episodes on Clubhouse, which made me really want to have a YouTube show as well, because Clubhouse, as great as it is, you know, it's you have to be there when it's happening, or you don't get to enjoy it. So yeah, well, so first of all, as I like to say, you know, when Rand called objectivism a philosophy for living on Earth, I like to say, you know, the living on Earth part is not an elective. Some people seem to treat it as such, and yeah, I think you guys, you know, help concretize that part. You know, you focus on you know, how great life is on Earth. Even when it, you know, when it doesn't seem that way. And one of my favorite episodes was the Copperpot Objectivists episode, which I think is a good lesson for all of us. That you know, objectivism, I think we all agree with the principles of it, and how we each apply it in our lives is you know, there can be great variations in that.
Well, I very much appreciate that. Unless you have something specific you want to say, I need to jump forward because I want to keep us on the schedule. Thank you very much for that, Rosie. You are the best. You made this all possible for all of us, and especially for Amy and I.
Yes.
We appreciate it all the time, even if we don't say it often enough. But next on my guest list, Amanda Maxson. Now, you did an amazing thing when Clubhouse was the big thing. Physics by phone. For folks who don't know, Amanda would have a weekly show on physics, and she would give physics lessons. She's a teacher, an instructor, and she gave physics lessons in an interesting way. You would think, what do you mean by phone? You can't do physics without visual aids. You can't do it without. No, she could, and it was always interesting and great fun, and lasted for I swear, when I heard about it, I thought 1 week and she'll be gone. You can't do this. She did it. She made it great. But now she's moved on. She's doing podcasting. She's doing the Happiest Man Alive project. She's working with Tal Tafani's Happiness team. Amazing, amazing stuff. Amanda, welcome to our 50th anniversary.
I was going to say, if someone paid me £100 to do the British Constitution, I could totally do it. I would just take the American one and photocopy it. And then like I would cross out president and put prime minister. And I think Congress, that gets replaced with like parliament, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Done.
That's half of the answer I was going to give. That's right there. And there's 100 pounds in your pocket. Love that.
Yeah, I was pretty much addicted to Clubhouse for a little while, so it's good.
So Amanda, tell us, what was the impact of objectivism on your life?
Yeah, so I'll do both your questions all in one fell swoop.
Good.
So I learned about objectivism from one of my brother's really good friends, who you may know, Ben Baer. He was he came back to be a debate coach at my high school, and he gave me a copy of The Virtue of Selfishness. And we went through the first, like just the introduction together, and just was so revelatory that I thought in the realm of philosophy, like whoever argued the best was like the winner, and that was kind of the best that you could do. And this it was exciting because it was like science. It was like an argument, but it was this, I don't know, it's like a different living kind of an argument. I don't know, it's just really exciting. And so that kind of launched me on the path. I have to say that I didn't really take objectivism personally for a long time. So I knew that it, simultaneously that it was true, but I also didn't really know what to do with it. And that came many, many years later. So the biggest thing how objectivism has benefited my life, I would have to say 100% is the friendships that I've developed because of it, and the people that I connected with. So, and that's starting with Ben Baer, because we would sit on the floor of the gymnasium at debate tournaments, and we would pour through The Virtue of Selfishness or whatever thing we were reading at the time, and try to analyze the arguments and figure out, what had Leonard Peikoff said about this or that, and how could we understand it better. And there's something really cool about being there for like Ben's development, because he became he's a legit philosopher now, and I know one, and that's really cool. And also, the friendships that I've made and the connections I've made as a result of that, like objectivists, they're the people that they could be the best people on earth. And I don't know, it's cool that I get to know them. So there you have it.
I think that's great, because it's Amy was talking earlier about Great Lakes objectivists, and that's exactly our experience.
Yes.
Why do you create an objectivist group? Well, to study the ideas and to spread the ideas and to have activities and do all sorts of activism. And you create a circle of friends that are just amazing people too. And
you really are. I've become very grateful that people like you guys, all of you are out there in the world. It's amazing. And it's delightful.
So let me just thank you, Amanda. Let me go to the super chat real quick here, because I want to read a couple of these real quick. We read Phil's, and we are going to get back to that as well. Jennifer is on hand with $10, says, congratulations, Amy and Robert, for your 50th episode. Jennifer, you're the best, and you know it. Apollo Zeus is on as well with 2 pounds, says, happy first birthday, life on Earth. And finally, if I can get my little scroll, oh, wait, there's more coming in. Dylan, the man who used to be the man behind the scenes, very much appreciated, with $10 as well. And we're going to get to the current man behind the scenes in just a moment. And Bonnie. Oh, Bonnie. Bonnie is in for $20 and says, we're amazing. Bonnie, you are amazing. And you know that's true. I don't know anybody who takes, especially the issues of epistemology and free will, as seriously as Bonnie does. It's always great to see you in the chat. Thank you for that. Now, I said the man behind the scenes helped us out in the super chat there, Dylan. Well, he has moved on to other things. And now the man behind the scenes is the man that I want to talk to next. Let's see. Do we have Daniel? Yeah, there he is. There is the man behind the scenes, the man who actually makes all of this happen.
Yes.
Now, I've said before, we have a show where Rosie found us, I think, is we have a show on Sundays, 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir and Amy Nasir. And it's a lot of what we do here, a little more personal stuff, a little more quirky stuff. We have to do all that ourselves. We have to engineer that ourselves. And we're setting up cameras and lights and all the stuff, the behind the scenes, OBS and Restream. Well, when we do this show, all we've got to do is fire up Zoom. And that's it. I mean, we do some lights and we have some fancy microphones, but no, we don't really have to do anything. And that's because There is a man behind the scenes. There is a producer. Daniel, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. Thank you for inviting me here.
Well, thank you for coming along. Now, I'm going to ask you a couple of the same questions we're asking folks, but I got a lot of questions for you. And next week, folks, we're going to do some of our best episodes have been interviews. We've interviewed Jean Maroney. We've interviewed Luke Travers. We've interviewed Linda Cordair. Actually, there was a co-hosting one that you did with her. That was great fun. But next week, we're going to talk to the man behind the scenes. But I just want to ask Daniel, because this is a special 50th anniversary celebration, how much of a drag does it have to sit through every one of our episodes every time that we do one? See, there's one person I can count on who will always hear every episode, and that's going to be Daniel, because he has to.
And he'll be honest with you, because Daniel's the best.
But seriously, have you at least enjoyed somewhat the episodes we've done? What do you think of the show?
I've enjoyed all the shows. I mean, I used to watch you even, before I was the man behind the scenes. So, I'm just
that's an answer I would have paid £100 for.
I'm just continuing what I've always done, but now I, also record it and post it for everyone.
Excellent. Now we'll get more into this next week, but just I'm curious, because in the context everybody has answers for this one. What's your origin story? How did you get into Ayn Rand? How did you come across this stuff?
Oh, so it had to be like maybe 3 years ago, and as a lot of younger people say, it's Raka. I saw the Raka's interview.
You're Raka's Naka, aren't you?
I'm the biggest Naka. I saw his interview with Dave Rubin, and he just talked with such a passion that I just had to figure out I just had to figure out something more. And he talked about Jerome Brook as the ghost of Ayn Rand, and Jerome Brook at that time also had an interview with Dave Rubin. So I followed Jerome Brook, I followed his show, and then about a year later I found ARCUK.
See, that's amazing to me. I have to admit, because we've known, well, I'll use the name Rucka. We've known Rucka for a long time.
Yes.
He came to Great Lakes Objectivist years and years and years ago. So we have known the guy, and we also know what he does for a living.
Yeah.
And when he started making the transition from brilliant parody artist to objectivist intellectual, some of us, at least the guy in the mirror, was skeptical of that. And yet he's had such an impact. He's done such a great job. He's now, in the OAC. He's brought so many people on board, and Daniel, you're the living proof of that. And it's just great to hear your story, because it's I wouldn't have imagined.
Yeah, I mean, not only did I found Objectivism because of Raka, I found ARCUK because of Raka, because he was he was one of the first. Him and Nikos, I think, were the first hosts who did it on daily basis.
It's a good thing that he is a famous musical artist, because otherwise I don't think we could afford his salary. And in that regard, Kemetja is in for €3. Thank you very much in the super chat there.
And I think we
did I miss one?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Equal to reality there has
Alex,
a question
for £5. He
for
says,
£5.
Well, he just says, great show and fantastic host and guests. What more could we want? Here is to another year of life on Earth.
I'm glad
Thank
you
you
asked
so
what
much,
more
Alex.
could you want, because if anybody in our panel of amazing hosts and guests and anybody out there in the chat has any suggestions for the next year, it's going to be one of our questions toward the end, is where do we go from here? I'm ready to announce the next couple of shows, but I would love to know what direction you would like to see things go. So thank you for that. And Phil is in for another £20 and says, sorry, Robert Namer, answer me another time. I didn't click. You'd be mob-handed.
Yeah, he didn't think that we'd be something, I don't know.
Yeah, well,
we'd have so many people on.
I
Maybe?
will give an answer to that if you're not on when I give the answer. Well, let me read the answer real quick. It's real short. And I don't mean to take away any time from Daniel, but this is real quick. My answer to that amazing 100-pound question was, all you need to do is the same thing they did in the States. What you need is separation of powers and freedom of speech. They don't have a First Amendment in Europe, in the UK either. It's crazy. We stole the Magna Carta from the UK.
Mm-hmm.
We took the Magna Carta, created the Constitution. All you need to do is create a United States-like Constitution. You already have the House of Lords and the House of Commons, so you've got your Senate and House of Representatives already. Just change the House of Lords to be elected instead of appointed or by heredity. That's all you need to do. Oh, and Amy says,
yes, I say what you do is you take the monarchy and you convert it into a profit making living history museum.
that's right.
And and the queen, she doesn't need so much.
She doesn't need to be part of the government. You
she
can have
doesn't need-
royalty
yeah,
without that.
No, and you can, people come, I think, James, you said earlier before the show, people pay so much money to go to England and see just a glimpse of the queen. Well, wouldn't it be great just to have like tea with her or something like that,
So you need
she could become a celebrity.
You just need a for-profit monarchy that has nothing to do with the government.
Yeah.
And should certainly be a hell of a lot more gracious than the Kardashians or whatever our equivalent is here. So yeah, just privatize all of that.
Keeping up with the Windsors.
Absolutely. And then, Daniel, I didn't get to, and we will next week, but do you have a quick answer to the question, what has this stuff done for you? What's it done for your life? Has it had an impact on you just personally, how you live?
I mean, absolutely. One thing I always wanted to do is to go to other countries because, as many of you know, I live in Slovakia, not the best country there is. So I always was excited to go somewhere else. And, only thanks to Objectivism and ARCUK, especially, I went to London and got to meet a lot of you guys, and will now go to the United States for 2 weeks, which is more than I could ever hope for.
Oh, that's going to be great.
And it's going to be so much fun.
Excellent.
And you know what, Daniel, we're going to get some pizza and it's going to be really stringy. And I'm going to get a good pizza shot of you holding the pizza up with the string coming out of your mouth. The last time was too blurry. So anyway, that's an aside.
When an artist gets something in her mind, you've got to let her run with it. Now, I'm going to move, because again, next week, do not miss Life on Earth, an interview with Daniel Krauss.
Yes.
We're going to get into that and more. That's going to be great fun. But let me get on to Alejandro, because Alejandro, thank you for joining us. And of course, I know you primarily from your work with, well, the next person who's going to speak. You co-hosted the Ayn Rand essays and asking all of the insightful questions to do with that. Alejandro, thank you so much for joining us. And what is your Ayn Rand origin story? Where did this come from for you?
Well, congratulations, Robert. Congratulations, Amy, for this show. I hope that you get many more shows, many more years.
Thank you so much.
So my origin story is basically, I was about 16 years old, and my dad, I was very interested in philosophy back then. My dad, and I liked Kant back then. I liked it because he talked about free will, and he talked about things being absolute, not having any loophole on morality that you could go through. So I like that.
That's right.
And my dad told me, well, there's this philosopher who is very much against Kant. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And I left it for a while. Then I went to university, and one of my first readings was from Fountainhead. They asked me in uni to read it, and I thought it was interesting, but I left it as well. And until I went to watch her YouTube interviews. I think it was with Tom Snyder. And I was expecting this angry old lady like screaming at this guy. She was selfish at the end of the day. And I saw like this philosophical grandma answering these amazing questions in a way that I had never seen it. I was really interested in philosophy, but I had never seen such kind of answers. So I was hooked. And later I read Atlas Shrugged, and I really loved it.
Good. Yeah, I mean, Ayn Rand can be a real badass fielding those questions. She's so good. And it just go back and listen to all of her Q&As, all of her lectures. It's amazing.
It really is. And since you've been going over the Ayn Rand essays the way that we've been going over the Peikoff essays on Fridays, you know that as much as anybody. Now, how did you get involved with the Ayn Rand Center UK?
Well, had just moved to London, and then I remember I followed Jonathan Hoenig in Twitter, and he retweeted that there was going to be this meetup by Rassi. I think it was 3 years ago now, and I went there, and I found it amusing. I loved meeting these kind of people, having these essay discussions back then, and since then I become a member. I'm a paying contributor of the ARCUK.
Outstanding. And thank you so much for joining us. Now feel free to chime in as we continue to go along.
Congratulations.
I'm going to
Thank you so much, Alejandro. Oh my goodness.
And let me jump to your co-host, the host of Ayn Rand Essays on Tuesdays on the Ayn Rand Center UK and Peak Off Fridays.
Yeah.
You know, the last couple of months, Amy and I have had the honor and privilege
and absolute delightful fun
of co-hosting Peak Off Fridays, a discussion of Leonard Peikoff's essays. I think we may change the name officially to Peak Off Fridays with James Valiant, because we are now discussing the Keeping It Real book, and this is going to go on for a few weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to take some time. There's so much good in here. James Valiant, thank you for joining us for the 50th episode, first anniversary of Life on Earth.
My honor. And again, congratulations. My goodness, what an achievement. And at the rate you're going, I think we can predict, all other things being equal, you will have another 500, not 50 more episodes.
Well, there have been over 500 TDOs, the daily objectives. So we're only going once a week. It'll take us a little bit of time to catch up, but we'll do our damnedest. Now,
you do it, I'm pretty sure.
Now, it's interesting to me because I feel like I know you so well already, and yet I'm not sure I could answer this question succinctly. Maybe there isn't a short answer, but what has been the impact of objectivism on James Valiant's life?
Well, that is a huge answer, and I will try and confine, because I could take probably 8 hours delineating that in some detail.
We need to interview you for a whole episode. But if you only had 5 minutes, what would you say?
I could certainly go on and on about it at that length. So I guess I'll have to point out just how fundamental and comprehensive the influence of Ayn Rand has been on nearly every aspect of my life. And the best way to summarize that is like this, I think. Objectivism taught me to think in principles, how to think in principles, and then gave me principles that proved the ultimate technology for living, ultimate guidebook. I mean, I found that just a ready application of her principles solved 99.99% of the questions I had in the course of my 58 years. Now, I mean this as a prosecutor, understanding what I was doing, the confidence of knowing that I was doing justice every time I was a public prosecutor and went to trial. It has to do with my personal life, my 25 years and going relationship with the love of my life, Holly. It has to do with every aspect of my life. It has to do with my research on the origins of Christianity, induction, across the board. And it's maybe the single most important aspect of this is that, you know, even after I'd become an atheist, even after I'd dismissed the supernatural and God that I was raised with as a child, I still was thinking in a religious mode. It was still sort of a psychoepistemological, methodological, and emotional bias towards intrinsicism about principles, about ideas and values. And that is exactly what nothing else but objectivism I know of out there could have fixed and solved for me. It took years for me to do it, to stamp out of my life all those traces of intrinsicism and religious thinking about both ideas and values. But I have, when I was a teenager, I read about Howard Roark and Dagny Taggart, and that's what I wanted to be. I knew I wasn't quite that yet. Like Don, I was a mixed bag as a teenager, but I knew that's what I wanted to strive to be. But it took me years to actually realize that. But when I have realized that, and to the extent that I've realized that, I've found nothing but glorious success, which brings me to, if I can make a plug for the show we're doing tomorrow, I can't think of two people I would rather do this with, because in your Life on Earth show, what you do is you show the power of this set of ideas. You show how it can be used, applying it to situations maybe Ayn Rand herself didn't address or didn't anticipate, but you show what a powerful technology this is, and more than that, the happy, loving affect and manifestation of that. And you are the perfect embodiment of that integration of theory and practice, reason and emotion, that only Ayn Rand and Objectivism provides. And that's why going through Leonard Peikoff's discussion of specific issues and how to apply Objectivism in your life, you are just ideal for that, because that is the leitmotif of your show. So I can think of no better. You're two of my favorite people in the world, of course. I've known you for years and I love you. But I could honestly, in terms of this particular task on Fridays, which is going to start tomorrow, I can think of no two better people to do this with. It's just been my privilege, honor, and personal selfish joy to know you two. It really has. So keep up the outstanding work. I love you.
James,
James, I love you too.
There's another guy I got to send 100 pounds to. James, of course, it has been our honor, our privilege, and our pleasure to do these Peikoff Fridays with you. And now, of course, I'm that much more looking forward to doing that. Oh my gosh, real quick, let me just jump back. I feel bad jumping back after that very generous compliment. But Bonnie in the chat says, does Alejandro have new plans? I guess she kind of has the same question a lot of us have, which is, I understand that you're wrapping up doing Ayn Rand Tuesdays. Is it just a schedule conflict, or do you have something else on the horizon? Anything exciting that we should know about?
Maybe. I don't want to talk about the moment, but I have some plans. Yes.
Okay. We are all wishing you the best on whatever your next ventures are.
Boy, I have to jump in here and say that Alejandro's questions have been outstanding. They really, and it's been a joy to work with Alejandro. Being one of the things Objectivism has taught me is to respect and honor other people's selfishness. Mm-hmm. And although I would miss Alejandro if he went, like, you don't know how I would miss him. On the other hand, as an Objectivist, I want him to pursue his selfish values and to make it the life the best that he can make it for himself. So I will miss you terribly if that happens, mi amigo. But you have been essential and an important part of the success of that program.
Thank you, James. And I've been feeling really sad. Don't make me feel more sad.
Can I also jump in quickly about Alejandro? First of all, I want to thank Alejandro again for the amazing work that he's done. And I do want to say to Bonnie, one place you can see Alejandro on an almost weekly basis is the London Ayn Rand meetup. So it's always worth a trip. I know we did a big conference, and that was that was when people travel here, but any week you travel here, you're likely to see Alejandro at the meetup.
You people in the UK are so selfish, keeping them all to yourself. Back to the super chat just real quick, because Dylan is in for another $5. Thank you so much for that. Again, feel free to bring it on. We're going to compete with TDO 500. It's amazing that, especially opening with that big one, but all of the super chats today, very much appreciated on this. Our 50th episode has been great fun. Now, I think I did answer the question that was asked about, well, what should the UK do? Obviously, they should be like us. That sounds so subjective, but what can you do when you're right? And this gets to what James was saying, a little bit of what everybody was saying, because when I think of what are the amazing things about this philosophy to me, when you're young, when you're reading other philosophers, when, and you're just, trying to figure it all out, trying to put it all together. And, Alejandro talked about reading Kant, and everybody talked about their philosophical journey. The one thing you don't expect in today's culture, when you're young and you're just starting to, and I was picking up philosophy, not just from philosophy, but from reading, crazy stuff like Robert Heinlein and Richard Bach and Piers Anthony and fantasy and science fiction. The one thing you don't expect as you're going through and picking up bits of wisdom from everybody is that any one person came up with just about all the right answers. As Amanda suggested, she more than suggested it, you don't expect philosophy to be a science. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, the right answers are actually out there. There are books you can read, and you don't have to say, well, let me pick up a little bit of Einsteinian physics and a little bit of Newtonian physics and a little bit of alchemy and a little bit of astrology. No, somebody actually got the right answers.
Yeah.
And that's one of the amazing things about objectivism to me, is that there's just about nothing that Ayn Rand didn't get right. She didn't say everything, but everything she said was consistent and integrated. Extraordinary stuff. So when I think the impact of objectivism on me, the first big jaw dropper was, oh, she actually got everything right.
Right. Not only is this good, but it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Outstanding stuff. I can't thank everybody enough for joining us. By all means, feel free to jump back into the conversation now that everybody has had their 5 minutes of fame. You know, we call our Sunday show 5 minutes with Robert Nasir and Amy Nasir, and it's a bit of an in-joke because it's never just 5 minutes. So feel free to chime in, take extra minutes, take extra time. I just want to thank everybody in the chat, everybody who watches us later, because we have more views after the fact, even than we do live. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Now, it's not over yet. We are far from finished with life on Earth. Oh, that sounds a little morbid when you put it that way, but no, life on Earth is not over yet.
This is far from over.
And the one of the things that I would like to hear in the chat or afterward, and you can reach me on all the socials, everything's by my real name, Robert Nasir, and you can get Amy that way too, although she's also on Facebook. You should be friends with her. Is going forward, do you have any ideas for what we should be doing on life on Earth? The panel here, or anybody in the chat, or any of y'all afterwards, reach me on facebook.com/Robert Nasir, Twitter/Robert Nasir.
Yeah, who would you like to see? Do you want to see more of Amish Adalja talk about punk rock?
Yes, that was fun. That was a fun episode.
We did something in here. You know,
yes.
I've been involved in objectivism now for over 30 years. And one of the things we didn't have in the early decades when I was in objectivism is this internet thingy with all these wonderful podcasts.
Oh my God.
I got to meet and talk to some of the most amazing people that I've ever spoken with. People like the late Professor Alan Godhelf, or people like the late Professor John Ridpath, and or the late Martin Anderson. And they're all fascinating people, but they've passed away since. And I think to myself, and I look back on that, and I think, wow, if we'd been able to capture the soul or the mind of these brilliant, brilliant men and women who are connected to objectivism that have since passed on. So I'm going to say, do more interviews. Do more interviews of Ed Locke or Harry Binswanger or Greg Salmieri or Amanda or Dawn, because getting them on the record is, I think, a historically valuable thing. And so I encourage you to do more interviews. You have a particular chemistry with your interview people too that no one else has. You bring a personal touch to it, and you bring them alive, your subjects alive as human beings. So I just would selfishly ask you to continue doing interviews like that, because you bring something special and magical to interviewing some of the most important minds working today.
I just got to say, for you to recognize that, Jimmy, is just so lovely to me, and it's such a value to me that, I mean, it's
between the two of us, I'm constantly churning topics, and Amy's constantly saying, Robert, we've got to do more interviews. These interviews are so good.
Yes.
So please.
So thank you, James. You're right. Amy is right.
You know,
and we will be making that happen. I'm looking forward to interviewing Daniel next week, but we are going to expand our reach. Again, it was so good talking to Jean. So good talking to Luke.
Yeah.
So good talking to Amish.
Yeah. But I'll give you a little piece of my origin story real quick. And I've talked about this before, but really Ayn Rand turned me away from cynicism and turned me on to values. And I wouldn't have had that if it wasn't for her. And of course, yes, Don, I did it myself. Of course, I processed these ideas myself. But just, and going back to my original premise of the show today, just knowing that good people are out there, they exist, they're thinking, they're doing things, they're writing books, they're making art, they're living life to the fullest extent that they can, is such a joy to know. And human beings, like Robert says, human beings are our favorite species. Especially when they're rational, when they have excellent ideas, reality-based ideas, is such a fulfilling thing to know you all and to know so many people. It's yeah, you can't get it anywhere else.
And this is the place. This is the place. Again, not to give ARI a hard time. They're amazing and irreplaceable, but given what ARCUK has done to bring people together, just to make, I shouldn't call it casual objectivism, to make casual objectivism a thing. And by that, I don't mean taking the ideas less seriously. What I mean is that this is now a daily thing, the daily objective, but all of these shows, objectivism is a daily presence in our life. I think for a lot of us, the first time we read The Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged or The Virtue of Selfishness, we felt a little isolated. I'm sure there are other objectivists out there, but I wonder how common it is. The internet makes it fairly easy to figure out you're not alone, but to really feel the kinship, to really have a sense that I'm not alone on this journey. It's ARCUK has been amazing in that regard, and cannot thank you enough. Thank you to everybody who's given a super chat. I didn't mention, but I should, because I always do. If you're not yet a member of the Ayn Rand Center UK, or if you're thinking about upgrading your membership, because we have different levels, you should by all means go to aynrandcenter.co.uk, click membership at the top, and become a member. You can also become a member of the YouTube channel. This is fun because you get access to the special icons and a little extra status, and it's only a few pounds a month or a few dollars a month for some of us. And we even have quirky icons of all the show hosts in there, although I don't have the YouTube in front of me right now, but maybe Amy will have some fun with that.
Yeah, and can I also mention, Robert, I keep forgetting to mention this because it's relatively new, but for people who are watching this recorded, you can also support the show by giving super thanks. You'll see the dollar icon somewhere there. And yeah, I mean, I'm very glad that we've had episode 500 of the Daily Objective. We've had episode 50 of Life on Earth. Now I'm hoping we'll have episode 5 of Rise and Fall, but we'll that remains to be seen. But yeah, I'm yeah.
And my bottom line for that, because it is Life on Earth with Robert and Amy Nasir, what I tell people on Sunday, because we have a Patreon, we have our personal Patreon and PayPal links at robertnasir.com. What I tell people is don't give till it hurts. Give right just before it hurts. It's funny because there was the story about Ayn Rand and the folks she hung out with, the collective it was called for a while. And the story is told that they were trying to figure out ways to drum up money for some of the activities they were doing. And people were saying things like, exchange your values, values for value. Think of the way that Yarn Brooke does it. And Ayn Rand chimed in and said, yes, and give till it hurts. In her charming voice, and of course being ironical. I love that story. So I always say give just almost to the point where it hurts. But yes, by all means, support in any way you can. But what I really want for each and every one of you out there listening to this show right now, if these ideas haven't made you rich yet, I usually say happy. If these ideas haven't made you happy yet, realize this is the owner's manual for life. Crack that manual, follow those instructions, get more values in your life. But I'm not going to say that right now. What I'm going to say is, if these ideas haven't made you rich yet, well, that's your next move. Solve the wealth aspect of your life, get rich, and then you can send us all the money and send all the money to ARCUK. Short of that, give till it almost hurts. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. I have one from Kindred Amy in here. She's in for $1.49 with a unicorn. The unicorn implying this must be a fictional character. I don't know who Kindred Amy is. But thank you so much, really.
No, what I'm trying to say is that, meeting wonderful objectivists, kindred objectivists.
Yes.
Is it's like, you just happen upon a unicorn one day.
We did a whole episode called Kindred Spirits. And, that's what we have here. I feel like I'm in the room with everybody right now. Again, especially Rozzy and Amanda and Alejandro and Daniel, and of course, especially Jimmy, James Valiant, but all of you in the chat as well. I love that we have so many chat regulars. I love seeing new people come on, but the regulars just make this feel like home. You are kindred spirits. We are on, if not the same journey, we are on parallel paths. We're going to the same places. We're doing the same things, each in our own unique and individual way. can't thank you enough for joining us for 50 episodes of Life on Earth. How great is that? It'll officially be the 1-year anniversary tomorrow, so who knows? We may show up on the socials doing goofy stuff tomorrow as well, but this is 50 episodes, 1 year. Rosie, thank you for inviting us into your internet home, for making it happen. Amanda, thank you for the happiness teams, for working with Tal the way you do, and for your own unique charm. Alejandro, the work that you've been doing, we get to follow the work that you've done with James. It has been extraordinary on these Tuesdays, and we can't wait to see what you do next. Jimmy, you know we love you. We always will, no matter what you do. We did a whole episode called Unconditional Love about that. And if anybody fits that, you have our unconditional love. And Daniel, thank you so much for what you do. Every time we have a show, you handle it with excellence and with grace. And when we screw up or run late, it's never an issue, although we're getting better at that. Thank you so much for that. And everybody listening, this is Life on Earth. Make it magnificent.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, you guys. I love you.